Welcome to another episode of Curiosities Unlocked. If you haven't watched any of my other videos and you still haven't liked or subscribed, I hope you reconsider and start today. This week we will bring you cases of murdered and missing Indigenous women. For so long, this is yet another set of voices that have been silenced. And so this week and throughout this month, I will be bringing you cases, 1 to 2 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women, just so that I can be a part of elevating their voices and their cases. So I hope you join us for all of these, and at the end and in between, I will be having some very important information, so I hope you stay to the end. Across America, Indigenous families have been searching for their loved ones, their mothers, their wives, their daughters, their aunts, their sisters, and without any clear answers. Some of these statistics are really shocking to me. That homicides are the third leading cause of death for women between the ages of 10 to 24 years old. And it is the 5th leading cause of death for American, Indian, and Alaska Native women between the ages of 25 and 34. Throughout this, I will be leaving resources in the description, so please make sure you check them out so that you can support each of these cases and its causes. Coming in at number 5, we have Echo K. Littlewolf. Echo was 31 years old when her mother discovered her remains in poor condition in a field outside of Wapato, Washington on August the 15th, 2017. Echo was homeless and was known to camp in that area. Her remains were in such bad condition that she initially could not be identified. When authorities matched her false 2 front teeth up to those of Echo, who lost them in a childhood accident. Family reported Echo missing about a week prior. They report that authorities seemed unconcerned and claimed someone had seen her in the past several days. In the beginning of the investigation, an autopsy was not performed. They had just determined that she had died from some type of natural causes, something like heart failure as a result of drug use. Authorities claimed that there was no sign of foul play. Family believes that Echo may have been murdered. When she was found, Echo wasn't carrying anything on her, including a large purse, an EBT card she almost always had on herself. She had just cashed 2 checks before her disappearance, and it was possible she was killed during a robbery. The investigation is still considered closed. If I had a loved one who was murdered and an autopsy had not been performed, yeah, I would be upset. So, coming in at number 4, we have a triple homicide where the suspect has been acquitted. The panel of 8 women and 4 men acquitted Sanchi, 47, after a 5-week trial in which Moore and co-counsel Roger Hunko put the conduct of the sheriff detectives and the heroin addict victims on trial, even as prosecution went after the conduct of their client. But it was Joey Sanchi's conduct that made him a prime suspect in the death of his sister, Charmaine Sanchi, 47, her roommates Tony Marie Green, 43, and Steve Alvarado, 47. And they were beaten and stabbed when they were found on January the 16th of 2003 in a tiny trailer they shared outside of Tuba Pinshi. I know I slept at that. It was one of the worst homicides in the country since the quadruple slaying of an Outlook family in 1994. Estranged at the time from his wife, Sanchi had been staying with the victims for several weeks prior to the murder. During that period, he admitted during the trial that he was almost constantly drunk and high on cocaine or both. Sheriff detectives arrested him 2 days after the discovery of the bodies, saying they tricked him into making up a hokey alibi in which he claimed he killed Alvarado in self-defense but didn't kill the women. The alibi was clearly a lie, but whose lie was it? Detectives testified Sanchi came up with the story, but they couldn't prove it because the statement was never recorded. The defense suggested the story was a false confession, noting that detectives tried to trick Sanchi by claiming falsely that they found his bloody fingerprints at the scene. Nothing could have been further from the truth. In fact, investigators never found a shred of physical evidence linking Sanchi to the crime. Nobody was more pleased with Moore and Junco than Sanchi's family, who hugged each other and cried with relief after the courtroom cleared and he was acquitted. Having been raised by their uncle almost from birth, Charmaine's children, Joseph, 19, Rosella, 18, said they couldn't wait to sit down for dinner as a family again after a year and a half of this trial. Both of Charmaine's children graduated from high school in White Swan, while their uncle, awaited trial. A conviction would have resulted in the automatic sentence of life in prison without parole. We just knew that he couldn't have done something like that and that it would all come out at trial, Joseph Sanchi said. He's my dad. He's all I know, and I love him. Now that Sanchi was acquitted, this triple homicide is still unsolved. These 3 beautiful souls have not found justice. Across the United States, families are still searching for their loved ones, their mother, their sister, their children, their aunts, their cousins, and all of it. And it's really sad. It's really sad that this has become such a huge problem that has stayed under the radar for so long. Coming in at number 3, we have Rosenda Strong. In 2018, Rosenda Sophia Strong was a 31-year-old mother of 4 and a citizen of the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. Rosenda was known to be very outgoing and someone who loved to laugh and who people knew by her unique laugh. Rosenda lived with her sister, Sissy Reyes, and on October the 2nd, an acquaintance picked Rosenda up from their home and drove the two a short distance to Legends Casino in Topeka, Washington. They drove an older model Nissan. Rosenda was never seen again as she never returned home. She was last seen leaving the casino with a man. Almost 9 months after her disappearance, on July the 4th of 2019, 2 homeless men found human remains in an unplugged freezer. The freezer was located in the 64,000 block of U.S. Highway 97 on the Yakima Reservation, and dental records confirmed the remains were those of Rosenda Strong. Strong is among dozens of women and girls, men and boys who have disappeared, that have either been murdered or died mysteriously on or around the 1.3 million acre of Yakima Reservation.
People have been missing for decades and many cases remain unsolved.
So if you have any details about this case, about who the man she may have left with, who it could possibly have been, you also wonder, like, if she was at the casino, why wasn't the casino cameras checked, or were they? They may have been. I just may not have found that information. But who was the man that she was with? Coming in at number 2, we have Brittany Tiger.
Tiger was a beloved mother, daughter, sister, friend. Above all else, advocates for missing and murdered Indigenous women say she was someone. In 2017, Brittany's days were dedicated to taking care of her 3 young children, Jayla 9, Christian 7, and Samaya 4, and spending time with loved ones. In September of that year, the family grew by 1 when Brittany married Will Gomez. The pair was inseparable, according to Brittany's sister. Brittany and the kids moved into Will's house, and the newly formed family of 5 lived together in what friends describe as happy home. But just 5 months into the marriage, something inexplicable happened. On February the 11th of 2018, the children were staying with their biological fathers. Will would later tell the police that he and Brittany took the opportunity to go to bed early and get a good night's sleep. But at 3:30 a.m., when Will stirred in his sleep, he found the space beside his bed empty and Brittany was nowhere to be found. After not hearing from Brittany in little over a week, Brittany's family grew very concerned. Brittany's sister Jessica and their mother Bernadine lived only a half a mile away from Brittany's house, and according to Jessica, Brittany never went far without telling her mother. On February the 19th of 2018, Brittany's half-sister, Christina Lewis, reported Brittany missing to the Ada Police Department. The police officers promptly went to the Gomez home to conduct a welfare check. The police detective, Brian Engel, told Dateline that Brittany's husband, Will, was there, and they took his statement at the house. According to police, Will said Brittany must have left when he was sleeping, taking a couple of hoodies and a bag of makeup with her. At the time, police believed Brittany left willingly on foot, as neither her husband or her owned a car. But Brittany's family maintained she would never have abandoned her children on her own accord, and they grew very frustrated as the days and weeks went by with no sign of Brittany. Brittany's husband, Will, didn't seem to share the same desperation to find Brittany. Authorities told Dateline that Will said he wasn't worried that Brittany was missing because he told them that Brittany commonly left for weeks at a time. And for that reason, Will told investigators when Brittany disappeared, he carried on with his routine, even felt comfortable leaving the city for a period of time.
Brittany went missing on February the 11th of 2018. Her body was found more than a month later, about 20 yards behind a fence. Now, Bohi Chance Starnes of Ada was charged with unlawful disposal of a deceased corpse in March of 2020. His case relating to her was dismissed in November of 2020 for a lack of subject matter jurisdiction over alleged crimes committed in Indian County. Now, there has been a Supreme Court debate about the legal jurisdiction over crimes involving American Indians on tribal land because their reservation has not been disestablished by Congress. So this is an ongoing problem. I will also note that Brittany was going to leave her husband, and so this case today is still unsolved.
Something is up and something is missing. The amount of missing Indigenous women and girls in the US and Canada is unknown. It's really unclear. But what we do know that in Canada, there is a range of about 1,000 to 4,000 that has been documented, and that's a huge gap. Data. The lack of data is part of the problem. Coming up at number 1, we have Celina Belle Deloney.
Celina Deloney was only 21 years old when she was found murdered on January the 16th of 2017. Prior to her untimely death, Celina lived on the Comanche Nation Reservation in Oklahoma. She had been married since she was 16, and her husband raised a daughter together. According to Celina's sister, Journey Tolthe,
Celina Deloney was only 21 years old when she was found murdered on January the 16th, 2017. She lived on the Comanche Nation Reservation in Oklahoma. She married at the age of 16 years old, and she and her husband had a daughter together. According to her sister, she was struggling financially and emotionally in months leading up to her death. One day in October of 2016, when she was at work, she learned that 3 men had broken into her home, robbed her family. Her husband, her daughter, and her sister were inside during the robbery, and all 3 of them were held at gunpoint. She rushed home to comfort her daughter, and shortly after, she lost her job. Months following, her financial struggles worsened because she lost her job, and she ended up having to move into a hotel. The last time she had spoke to her family members was on January the 15th of 2017. The following day, her family members saw a Facebook post about a body that had been found on Northwest Paint Road. And they had this unsettling feeling that the body belonged to Celina. And shortly thereafter, their fears were confirmed that she had been a victim of homicide and had been shot numerous times. Through the investigation, detectives learned that Celina was last seen alive at a Walmart approximately 10 miles away from where her body was found, and she had been seen getting into another person's vehicle in a Walmart parking lot. Her vehicle was found abandoned in the parking lot as well, but it did not yield any clues into her case. Detectives have reportedly identified the driver of the car that she had got in, and it was a man named Darnell McDaniel. He was labeled the person of interest. However, in August of 2017, over 6 months after her death, investigators confirmed that McDaniel was no longer considered a person of interest. And so since then, the detectives have not confirmed any identities of any other potential persons of interest. So this here is another case that remains active, but it is unsolved. So, and additionally, I will add that 3 people agreed to take polygraph exams, and all 3 people passed. So, yeah, another case unsolved.
That story really makes you wonder if the robbery had something more to do with her homicide, which is very eerie. Though many crimes happen on the reservation, there are thousands of crimes that happen off the reservation where local law enforcement is responsible for investigating those crimes, but they're not being investigated as they should. Tribal police serve as law enforcement on Native land, but when there are cases of murder, rape, and felony crimes, then the FBI steps in. But that's where the line gets a little blurry. If there is ample evidence, then the U.S. Department of Justice will prosecute crimes when they happen on tribal land. If tribal courts wind up with jurisdiction over a case, they do not hold any jurisdiction powers over non-tribal or non-Indian people. And therefore, they cannot prosecute or punish them for crimes that were committed on tribal lands. What? So it's so blurred here, right? Additionally, the maximum punishment for non-native, non-tribal people is for crimes, serious crimes, is the max of $1,000 as fines or maybe up to a year in jail. In 1978, the U.S. Supreme Court stripped tribes of their right to arrest and prosecute non-Indians that commit crime on tribal land. If the victim and the perpetrator are non-Indians, then only the county or the state is allowed to arrest them. What? Thanks for joining us for our countdown of missing and murdered Indigenous women cases. And so I hope that you join us for more. So please like and subscribe. And I'm very ignorant to the problem that has been going on for years. And so as I learn, I hope that you join me to learn too, because for the rest of the month, I will be touching on 1 to 2 Indigenous and murdered and missing women cases along with my normal cases that I discuss. So thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.